Kristen. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Good. I want everyone to know, Kristen, you are my cousin-in-law, I guess.
Yes,
Um, I
proudly.
know, yeah, we've known each other a very long time. And recently over this summer, my mom and dad said I should reach out to you because I'd heard you've been having quite an ordeal over the last little while. So thank you for joining me on this podcast episode.
Thanks for having me.
So before we get into the story, because I don't know the story yet, I'm very, very curious. I know it has a happy ending. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself, Kristen?
I'm Kristen. I'm 43 years old. I have two teenagers who keep me busy, and yeah, I'm a teacher.
Great. Okay. And now up until our journey starts today, how is your health overall?
Good. I'd say very good. I had some setbacks in the last 5 years just trying to discover some things. I had a mini stroke situation in 2018, but things have been sorted. And, that was completed. And then this ordeal we're here to talk about today. So,
Okay, so when you say mini stroke, do you mean like a TIA?
yes.
Okay, yeah, and the only reason I know about that is my grandma on the other side of the family had many TIAs in her
Right.
80s and into her 90s. I bet that was pretty scary.
It was, and my daughter was quite a bit younger then and it witnessed it happening, and so I think that was pretty traumatic for her too, but, the silver lining is that I am okay and being monitored, and, my father has a history of TIA as well, so, yeah, I think it's just I have to stay on top of things.
It's good to know that. And I know, like, I don't know much about them. I don't think that TIAs are related to heart, are they? No, I didn't think so.
It's mostly neurological.
Okay. And now, Kristen, I'm wearing a heart monitor for seven.
Yes.
I don't know where the other one is there for it's
Yep.
all over my stomach for 72 hours. They're itchy. Um,
Yes.
I've been having palpitations that come with like extreme dizziness, and I lose my vision. Like I'm a peripheral, but I can't see straight when they happen.
Oh
So
my
it's an
goodness.
issue. Yeah, I've had to pull over off the highway a few times. I still think it's more sort of like food blood sugar related, but all those tests came back fine. So it's a mystery. And of course, I only have a day and a half left on this, and I haven't had an incident. I'm like, of course I haven't.
No.
Better happen.
I had one 2 or 3 times when they were, doing all the discovery around my TIA, and, of course, things I they were, in the process of figuring out why I had the TIA, they determined I had a congenital heart defect, which we never knew about.
Wow.
And so, but a few times when I was wearing the monitor, nothing happened, none of the palpitations, and I thought, like, how? Because they
Yeah,
happen all the time, so how is it not happening right now? But it's very frustrating.
exactly. So they caught it? They caught it somehow?
Mhm. Yeah, they caught it because they couldn't figure out why I had the TIA, so my neurologist said, "Well, I'm going to refer you to a cardiologist," who then determined I had an atrial septal defect that I was born with, and we never knew about, so I'm closely monitored for that just to make sure things are flowing properly and, that everything's in good working order, so but, my point of bringing that up was that those monitors are no fun, and sometimes you have to do them a couple times to rule things out, but it's worth
Yeah.
it.
It is worth it. I wouldn't like, even though I don't think it's heart related, I would not be messing around with this, especially at my age. An important fact that I don't think a lot of doctors still tell their female patients is that when estrogen declines, like perimenopause, your cholesterol can increase. And that's what
Mhm.
happened to me. And I hear so many women say that. It's the reason that cardiovascular disease is the number one killer of women over 50. And yet, I think doctors should be shouting that from the rooftops. It's
Yes.
upsetting to me that, you still have to go to somewhere like my podcast to find that out.
Why don't
So,
more of us know that?
exactly. It's ridiculous. So, let's tell me what happened. I mean, obviously, I want to share your story as a cautionary tale, but as your cousin-in-law, I was also very concerned. You and I emailed a bit, and I want to know what happened.
Yes. Well, it's a very strange tale, but as we get older, we sort of feel like we connect everything to, oh, I'm getting older. It must just be that how that is now, and or I'm perimenopausal, so like, I was early 40s, but who knows? And so started noticing an issue in fall of 2002. Or 2022, sorry. And where it was difficult to urinate, getting harder to urinate as closer to my period. And I was like, I didn't connect it right away. So I just started noticing it was difficult to urinate. And
Like
then,
like a UTI? Did it feel like a UTI or?
nope, just hard to pass urine.
Okay.
And so didn't connect it to anything except, oh, there must be something wrong with my bladder or my kidneys or something. So started paying attention to it. It each month it got worse, a little bit worse each time. By January, February, because of my TIA story, I track everything that happens to me. So I
Smart.
started tracking when it was difficult to urinate and very quickly put together that it was connected to my cycle. So I went to the doctor in February and said, listen, this is very strange, but the few days leading up to my period, it's harder and harder to pee. And she said, I have never heard of that, but I'm going to send you for a kidney bladder ultrasound and we're going to start figuring out what's going on. So, of course, it was at least a month before that was booked, like that I got in for the ultrasound. And by the time I went in, it was closer to my period again, and I nearly couldn't urinate the couple of days before my period. And so then had the ultrasound. She said, you need to go empty your bladder partway through. I came back. She said, I told you to empty your bladder. I said, I did the best I could. This
Also,
is
that's
why
why
I'm
I'm
here.
here.
So yeah, so I said, this is what you get. That's the best I can do. And so they completed the test, and my doctor had me back in and said, well, your bladder's working properly and your kidneys, the ureter, everything seems to be going okay, except that you can't empty your bladder.
Yeah.
So, but she said, you're only emptying about, like, I forget what the percentage was. And I said, I know, this is the problem. And then I would have my period and it would go back to normal. So I kept tracking it. She said, so obviously this didn't give us the answers we wanted. So we're not giving up. She said, I believe you. There's some sort of connection here. I want to put you in for an urgent MRI. Urgent in Ontario doesn't mean
No.
urgent
Yeah.
for real.
Yeah.
So,
It's urgent without the U. Uh,
right.
and nobody wants to be a medical mystery. Like,
No,
not at all.
no. And it's also not great to not be able to urinate because that starts to cause other problems too.
Is it painful?
So,
Like holding, like, do you feel like
ah,
you're walking around with a full bladder all the time?
yes. So by the time, so that was the ultrasound was in February, and then I'd say the MRI was in May. That was urgent.
Oh, okay.
So March, I nearly couldn't urinate the day before my period. Like really, really had to work to make it happen. I'm
Oh,
like, something's going on here. So that I knew it was directly connected to my cycle. But anyone I told that to, aside from my doctor who said, I've never heard of this, but I believe you. People are like, no, it can't be that. It can't be connected to your cycle. I'm like, I'm telling you it is. It definitely is, but I couldn't figure out why. So April, right before my um, period, I was up all night. I could not pass urine at all. Had to go to the emergency room because I was in such a situation. I believe it had been 10 hours or 12 hours that I couldn't urinate. And I was in so much pain, and the back pain and the kidney pain, and I said to my husband, like, you have to take me. I don't know what's going on. So we go to the ER. They are not as concerned as me. um, I waited an additional 8 hours in the waiting room. I kept saying,
Oh
I
my
think my bladder is going to burst. I really think this is going to be an emergency, like major organ situation. And I was waiting and waiting. And then they brought me in and did a scan they have this machine that tells them how full your bladder is. I guess like an ultrasound type dealy. And they said, "Oh no, your bladder's not full." And I said, "It 100% is." I was
yeah.
crying. I was in the worst agony. I said, "I am telling you, something is going to burst. You need to do something. You need to catheter me or something. You need to do it." And she said, "No, it's not full." And she said, "But I'll tell the doctor. Wait for the doctor." Another hour, I think, went by. I was literally in a fetal position. Like, I'm like, what is happening here? And he comes in and he wants me to tell the whole story of, like, I said, I said, you have to give me some relief. It's connected to my cycle. I don't know what's going on. I can't urinate. You need to help me. Well, it's not connected to your cycle.
What? He knows this just by walking into the room?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I said, it is. I have all the documentation to tell you that right leading up, it's definitely connected to my cycle. And so he said, "Well, we're going to have to catheter you, give you a leg bag, get you connected with a urologist." I said, "Is there not a urologist that also is like a female gyno urologist type thing?" "No, I'm just going to connect you with a male urologist in the hospital." Okay, just empty my bladder. That's all
Yeah.
I want from you right now. Just empty my bladder. So they did. It was very, I don't think they do it very often in the ER, and it was very traumatic, but gave the relief. And then they said, "Oh, we have to get another bag. There's way too much." And I said, "Oh, but your fancy machine said I didn't have a full bladder."
Yeah.
Like, they said, "Oh, your kidneys could have your bladder could have burst and back to like your kidneys." And I said, "This is what I've been saying. I was telling it." So it was very frustrating. So, anyways, now I have my bladder attached to my leg pretty much. And I said to him, "So what do I do now? Because I'm about to have my period, a very heavy flow," which, of course, your flow changes over time. And it's like, "Oh, I must just be getting older. Maybe I'm getting closer to menopause," right? Like, you just
Yeah.
say, "Oh, that must
Perimenopause.
be it." It wasn't. It was connected to all of this, but so I said, "So how do I manage a heavy flow period and a catheter?" And he said, "Oh, you'll be fine." I said, "Oh, you've had a heavy flow period before?"
With a catheter and a
And
tampon?
I was
Please
just
no.
done, like, just mansplaining to me how simple it would be. And I said, my husband was there. So when I said that to him, um, "Oh, so you've done it before? You've had a catheter and a heavy flow period?" I swear Jeff, like, wanted to sink into the wall, like, "Oh my gosh, what's happening?" And he
Yeah.
said, "Well, no, but I am a medical professional." And I said,
You're like, I'm a female, a professional of my body.
"Yeah, and I can tell you this is going to be difficult." But anyways, us women do what we have to do. And I was in the catheter for a week, and the male urologist called me and said, "Tell me your story of how this has, developed." And I told him, and I said, "It's directly connected to my cycle like clockwork." And he said, "It absolutely is not." And I said, "You're wrong."
Oh my God, Kristen,
I
I can feel the frustration. Like I want to drop
oh,
an F-bomb right now.
yeah. And I said, "I know this is not going to be figured out overnight. I know it's connected to my cycle. I want you to connect me with somebody who is a, like, specialist in both fields, because there's something going on here." And he said, "Well, I can, but that's a double specialty, and there's only a few of them, so it'll be a longer wait." And I said, I'm I need them.
Yeah.
So then he said, in the meantime, they'll just teach you how to self catheter. I said, excuse me?
So
And
the
he,
answer is to keep you on a catheter? In a
yeah. Well, until I have my period, and then I'm okay for a little bit, and then I have to be cathetered again.
No,
And I
wait a
said,
minute. Like this is a solution?
yeah, until my year and a half
There.
appointment comes up. Yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
I said, and then he said, You can just self catheter. You don't have to keep coming back." And I said, hold on. First of all, I would need to be an octopus to be able to do that. And second of all,
Secondly, you're a teacher.
yeah, I said, "How am I?" He's like, "Oh, people walk around all the time with these leg bags." I said, "Uh-huh. I don't think so because I can't. And also, that doesn't help me. You telling me it's simple, it's easy, just do it, other people do it." I said, "What percentage of your patients are female?" I'll tell you the number, the percentage was in the single digits, and it was under 5. And
Oh,
I said, "I think I'm done this conversation. Connect me with my referral to the double specialist," and I moved on from him. So that was April. I had my urgent MRI in May. We still haven't figured out what's going on. It's clearly connected to, my cycle. The MRI, so I knew last month I had to be cathetered. So I knew it was just a matter of time before this was happening again because things weren't going to magically just get better.
no.
And so my MRI was set for the day of like I was expecting my period. And I was in agony. I was like, I just have to make it to this MRI. I've waited so long for it. We need more information. I wasn't sure if I could be cathetered in an MRI. And I couldn't get an answer from anyone, couldn't get a hold of my family doctor. So I struggled, made it to the MRI appointment, and then went directly to be cathetered again because like things were going to explode, but I got the MRI done. So then my doctor calls me. Then again, it's like 3 weeks later, she gets the results and says, "Well, you were absolutely right. It's directly connected to your cycle. You have a massive fibroid tumor in your uterus that is about the size of a coconut, and it's pressing as you get closer to your period, things thicken up in the lining of your uterus, and it's pressing on your kidneys and it's pressing on your bladder, and it absolutely needs to come out ASAP." I'm like, I knew it. I knew. Of course, I had no idea about that this could be it, but I thought,
I was wondering about a fibroid.
yeah, and it was quite large. She said there's absolutely no way they're going to have to take it out. So she refers me to a surgeon. 3 weeks go by and I don't even hear about an appointment. I figured it would be a wait, but thought at least I'd have an appointment, even if it was 6 months in the future. And I call the doctor and she says, "They've denied you.
I'm
They've
sorry,
just,"
that's an audible gasp. I'm sorry, what? Denied. I love that
yeah,
word.
yeah,
Denied you.
yeah. And here's why. You'll love this even more. They're not taking urgent patients.
Wh- Sorry, why?
Who,
Because
who,
why?
who are you taking if you're not
Yeah,
taking it?
non-urgent?
Yeah,
What?
yeah. So
Okay,
the
I'm gonna
waiting,
say it. What the actual fuck? Are you kidding
exactly.
me right now?
Yeah.
This really, wow.
That's how I started feeling about everything that was going on. I was just like, seriously? I said, how can they? She said, yeah, she's just not taking urgent patients. So waited nearly a month to tell me they weren't going to take me. Back to referring me to a different surgeon. My family doctor was phenomenal. She did not stop believing me once. She said, I don't know what it is, but it's happening. And so she referred me again to someone else who did take me. Oh, lucky me. And my appointment was 2 months later for a consultation. In the meantime, I'm in and out of catheters. So I had set it up with my doctor that I didn't have to go to the ER every time. I was set up with a community clinic that I could go in with the paperwork and be cathetered, and it was longer time that I was cathetered at a time because things were growing exponentially somehow. Um,
I'm not really surprised by that because when I had three smaller tumors, the biggest one I think was a golf ball size, and when I got pregnant, the hormones were feeding it. So it got bigger and it was very uncomfortable. So it would make I'm only making an assumption here that as you get close to your period and you get more hormone,
yeah,
oh man, that's awful.
it was terrible. So I was in and out of the clinic getting catheter, and then I'm in a catheter almost like 2 weeks. Then they remove it, and then like get your period, remove it, and then a few days later I'm back at the clinic. Like it was just like, and you can't work. I can't, you can't teach with a bag of urine on your leg. And my job, I was in special education. It was a lot of aggressive situations, and
Yeah.
anyhow, so it was very difficult. But waiting for this appointment in July, and she says, she saw the MRI and she was like, "Wow." That was her response. She said, "This is massive."
But also, Kristen, like, why do you need a consultation? You got the MRI. You
Yeah,
have the information. And this drives me crazy. The fact that every time you go to someone new, you have to re-explain the whole story, even though it's all right there.
yeah,
It's all right there.
yeah. So, she also had not heard of, that the just like I think the size of the fibroid tumor and where it was pressing, but it was impacting my kidneys now, it's impacting my bladder now, it's impacting all sorts of things. So she said we need to, this is growing quickly. Of course, she's looking at an MRI from May. It's July. And she said, you can't, like, this is not sustainable. Um, so urgent surgery was November from July. And I just lost it. I was like, I had no words. I was like, I don't know what to say. She said, it's not good enough because, it's growing. Like we're going to be in a situation that we could potentially need a transplant of some other type of major organs if things stop working properly because of this. So she bumped it to beginning of October. I'm like, you know what? I can't do anything about it. Let's just so in and out of catheters and just living life. And so then she says, we're gonna have to do a total hysterectomy. um, we want to keep your ovaries because we don't want you to go into surgical menopause. She said, it's unfortunately you're quite young, but I said, well, I'm growing a coconut baby, so we need to
Yeah,
get
I'm
it out
not
of there.
planning on having any more real ones, so
Right. So the plan was, major surgery along the C-section scar, 6 weeks recovery. So then flash forward to October, several catheters later, and we get to surgery date. It's almost canceled. I'm in there, I'm IV'd, I'm
what?
ready to go
What?
in. She says, we don't have a room for you after recovery. It's too full. So they're meeting right now to see if there's anyone they can discharge early. And I'm like, this cannot be happening. She said, it won't be till February if we can't do it today.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I feel like this is a lawsuit happening.
She said, I just don't have any other OR days until then. And so we're waiting an hour and a half to hear if it's happening. And then she comes in, she goes, I have good news. They've booted someone a day early, and so I feel sorry for that person, but I don't think they would have discharged them if they couldn't.
A day early. Seriously, come on.
Yeah.
Like a day.
And she said, we have to, let's go. So, I wake up from surgery, very out of it. It was a very long surgery. I think it was like 3.5 hours or something. It wasn't supposed to be that long. Jeff was like, why aren't they calling for updates? Anyway, she comes in the next day. Well, the nurses, you're out of it after surgery. The nurses are looking at, and I'm like, why are they looking up here, like on my up my abdomen? Like, why? What? It was supposed to be like down low, but I'm, you know,
Yeah.
in and out of anesthetic. So I said to the nurse, why is my bandage all the way up? Like, that's my belly button. She's like, your surgeon will be in tomorrow morning. I'm like, okay, well, passed out again. She comes in the next day and she says, I'm really sorry. I had to do a much larger surgery than expected. There were like coconut twins in there and some smaller other fiber, like lots happening that weren't on the MRI in May.
Wow. Is
So
it
it was,
because the big coconut sized one was blocking them or something?
I guess, and things just kept growing from May
Yeah.
to October. And she said I had to do like a foot long midline incision, like it's lots more recovery. But, and I was like, stop apologizing.
Yeah.
Did you get what you went in for? And she said, yes. I said, boom. Okay, I can recover. I can do this. So, recovery was 3-4 months rather than the 6 weeks expected.
Hmm.
Just so much more, involved. But pathology was all like positive, benign, and I'm here to tell the tale. So it's a very crazy tale. But I when I say it, I think like there's so many parts of it that I'm like, was that me? Did that happen to me?
I just think there's so many parts of it that are enraging. Like I really get tired of personally being dismissed and hearing other women being dismissed. You
Yes.
may not be a doctor, but you definitely know your body, so screw
Yes.
that. The
Which I
fact
kept saying.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that you've been, oh, that's criminal. Um, so, and in the community of women I work with, their problem is they can't keep their urine in. We're all peeing our pants, and here you are. Oh,
Wishing to pee.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and that's what the surgeon said to me. She said, typically with fibroids that are large and, other issues related to, all the things we have to deal with as women,
yep.
she said it would be a retention issue. Like you can't hold it, you're leaking, there's frequency, there's urgency.
Ah,
And she said, but you're everything's just blocked. Like
did they
stopping.
say that what caused the fibroids, or like was it hormone related? No.
They didn't say. She didn't say.
Yeah, I know I had smaller, I think I had one fibroid when I was in my mid 30s. By the time I was pregnant with Mad, I had three. And I had been pregnant a few times before Maddie's. So at the time, my doctor said, hormones, they feed off hormones, right? Like, so when you get pregnant, they're feeding, they're getting bigger.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't, I'm so sorry that you went through that. And how are you feeling now? Like how long now since the surgery?
We're coming up on a year. It was
Yeah.
October 10th last year.
Okay.
So I am pretty much back to normal. Like, I'm not in pain anymore. I was in so much pain for so long, for so many different parts of it all that, I've recovered well. I don't have any like negative effects that I know of from it all. They were able to keep my ovaries, so I didn't go into menopause.
Oh,
Um,
you didn't. Okay.
yeah, because she said that wouldn't be good. It's not good. I'm early 40s, so it's not good to go into menopause so early. But also with my congenital heart defect, menopause does all sorts of things to our other organs. And she said, I really need to keep your ovaries. And my cardiologist also said the same. So luckily, um, that. But I have noticed since my surgery, and it might not be related to my hysterectomy, but I have been having some like hot flash situations starting, like very obviously not what I remember seeing my mom go through, where she talked about it like internal combustion. But I've
Yeah.
noticed some changes in that way, and I wonder if it's connected to that or if it's just the age I am that things are starting to slowly creep in. I'm not sure.
Well, perimenopause, can happen as early as your 30s, like
Right.
late 30s. For most women, I right off the top of my head, I don't have the facts, but I know that like the first hormone that goes is the quiet one. Like you don't really feel it when progesterone lowers, I think. I kind of found that out when I was trying to get pregnant. I could get pregnant, I couldn't stay pregnant, and I didn't have enough progesterone. But I was 40, 41.
Right.
Um, so, and you are in that sort of runway to menopause years, but I would not be surprised at all. Hell, I'm not a doctor, but I would not be surprised at all if something about the surgery, helps speed things along. Um, but they are monitoring your heart, which is great. And you would obviously keep that up. Like you're more on top of this than I am or anybody else I know. So, it's almost sort of like a blessing that not that any of this happened, but I always think like you're going to be more aware of the changes in your body now, and you're going to be more vigilant about it because of what's happened to you.
Yes.
Where we hear horrible stories about 45-year-old healthy women who don't smoke, don't drink, jogging through the park and dropping dead from cardiovascular. So
Right.
it's a horrible journey that you had. It's an eye opener.
Mm.
I hope like that like the fact that you pushed back was great, because I don't when we're in the hands of a medical professional and we don't know what's happening to us, I think a lot of us tend to be respectfully silent.
Hmm.
But the fact that you were being dismissed and overridden, like,
So many
I'm
times.
so glad you didn't stay silent, because this is the thing, like, even with my own health issues that I had years ago, I was starting to research all of this stuff because I knew things were off, and I did get dismissed a lot, and I did change doctors because of it. And it's annoying, but also it could be really critical to your health.
Yeah.
Be just like, like a lot of women will leave some of these symptoms because they go online and they say, oh, well, this looks like it might be menopause or something. It could be something else,
Yeah.
and when you have a pre-existing heart condition like you had that you didn't know about, like you found that out because of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I think my one takeaway, like, my family doctor, and I have since thanked her because, of course, there was lots of follow up after my surgery. Is your bladder working? Are things working properly?
Yeah.
And I thanked her and said, like, you didn't give up. Like, you admitted, I don't know what this is.
Yep.
I've not heard of this, but I believe you, and we're gonna figure it out. And I said, this was all because of you. You kept pushing, and you're like, we need to do more imaging. We need to figure it out. And so it was definitely teamwork between the two of us, but she was definitely my champion in this.
Kristen, I think everything that you have said here is, it's really good for women to put this on their radar. For example, not every woman gets hot flashes. And so I think women feel like, oh, I'm not having hot flashes, therefore I must not be perimenopausal. That's not true. It's like your period or pregnancy. We don't all go through the same things
Yeah.
at the same, intensity. That doesn't mean we're not in perimenopause. And I think that's a big thing that women might misunderstand. A lot of women aren't even really sure what perimenopause is, which is kind of like when the hormones are changing and dropping and your body starts to respond. I look at it like the runway to menopause. If you can get your stuff sorted out in peri, you should have, a smoother transition. Thank you so much for sharing that story, because that sounds god awful, but I am so happy that you got an answer and that you're okay. Kristen, if you had one pearl of wisdom to share with women based on your experience and everything you went through, what would that be?
Well, I would say that it would be to trust your body and know your body and fight for what you know is happening. So advocate for yourself. Don't let doctors dismiss you. Just because they have a medical degree doesn't mean they've heard of every type of medical issue. So fight for yourself, advocate for yourself, you know. I have learned to track everything.
Yeah,
As soon as something unusual happens, start tracking it, because I know, and I guess this is like my pearl of wisdom part two. When you show up to a doctor's appointment with data, you get quicker responses than if you show up and say, "This strange thing is happening." And then they send you off and say, "Well, why don't you keep track of it for a while and come back?" So track it, fight for yourself, and just know your body and advocate, because no one else is going to. If
I
you
love
don't,
that.
no one else will.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are going to be a lot of changes that happen with perimenopause, maybe. Um, and I don't have a menopause tracker, but it is good to keep track. Like even though I'm postmenopausal, I still keep track of the things that are happening because I know that just because you get your last period doesn't mean you're smooth sailing. I mean, I'm 7 years in and I'm still having hot flashes and palpitations. And
Right.
in fact, while we've been talking, my little palpitation finally happened. I got to hit my little event button on my heart monitor.
Oh, I'm sorry to
I
hear
think
that,
it's
but I'm
off
glad
now.
to hear. At least it happened when you had it on this time.
Oh, thank God. And I have documentation because we're doing a podcast while it's happening. Like you can't see it, but I'm sweating.
Oh,
I'm sweating all over my arms, and like pretty soon as this carries on, I will start to like get blurry vision. It's crazy.
oh,
But no, I'm glad that I'm getting this tracked. But this is the thing, right? Like, when this started happening, I was told it's palpitations are normal in menopause, and that's great. But I was on the highway and I couldn't see the road. I could see sideways, so I had to get over 3 lanes and pull over. So if a palpitation is normal, let me just say it's dangerous.
yes.
So I do not want that happening while I'm driving. I don't want this happening to women. And so,
Yeah.
that means something's off. And this is the other thing. This is a whole other podcast. But, when these things are happening, it's a sign that something is off balance in us. And, we have to figure out what that is. It's not, oh, it's just menopause. Palpitations are a symptom of menopause. That just gives, us, license to ignore it and get into a
Yes.
bigger health problem. The other thing too, I want to say is your pearl of wisdom is really helpful because we do have to advocate and, doctors are not trained in menopause and perimenopause. Your situation was different, but um, therefore, they can't always determine what's happening, but it's important that you advocate so that they triage you to someone like an endocrinologist or
Mhm.
nutritionist or someone who can help you understand what's happening. So, again, Kristen, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm so happy to see you healthy. You look great.
Oh, thank you. It's been great chatting with you.
You too. I can't wait to see you soon.
I know, and we can have an actual hug.